December in Chicago bites deep. I know, because I've lived through many winters in the Windy City. So when our intrepid protagonist, Isla Rivera, finds herself shivering in the alley behind her beloved bookstore cafe, I can't help but feel a chill crawl up my own spine. Of course, I'm watching on a sunny 85-degree day in Los Angeles, but still, this is one of the most atmospheric thrillers I've ever watched. And I love that this is our introduction to what feels like a different era, a time when snail mail was actually a thing. And speaking of mail, let's take a look at what arrived in Isla's box. A photograph. Simply a photograph. There's no accompanying letter, no notes, nothing. This makes no sense. What kind of sicko sends a random photo and nothing else? I'd be inclined to agree, except for the fact that Isla seems awfully convinced that this photograph holds the key to everything. There's something about it that draws her in, and not in a good way. You know, like a moth to a flame. And as the great philosopher Jay-Z once said, "You can't stop me. I'm like a moth to a flame. I'm addicted to the flame." In any case, what we're re-looking at is an image of a man in his early 30s standing next to what appears to be a vintage gas pump. Judging by the trim on the pump, I estimate it to be from the late 70s or early 80s. The man himself looks to be in his early 30s. He has a nice smile and a charmingly awkward pose. If I were Isla, I would want to meet this guy. Just judging by his smile, I'd say he's a keeper. But alas, there's no context, no explanation. So Isla does what any normal person would do. She turns to the internet to find out more. As she writes in her journal, she has no memory of this man or any other man being present at her mother's funeral. So she must mean that her mother was seeing this man in secret. And that would make sense. Why else would she send a photo without saying a word? So if the gas pumps are anything to go by, this seems to be an old photo. And with a little bit of research, Isla determines that the pump was decommissioned in the early 2000s. From there, it doesn't take long for her to identify the location. It's a small town called Lanesboro in Minnesota. And just like that, we're off to the races. Now we cut to some snowy landscapes as we watch Isla hit the open road. Is she going to meet up with the guy from the photo? Well, there's only one way to find out. Don't forget to show your support so we can bring you more recaps like this one. And while you're at it, leave a comment down below telling us which characters you'd like us to cover in future videos. Upon arriving in Lanesboro, Isla decides to check out the local inn. Presumably because it's snowing so hard she can't venture outside. This leads to a delightful interaction with the receptionist named Marlene, who looks at Isla's driver S license and immediately assumes that she est from Detroit because she recognizes the name Rivera. Coincidence? Perhaps, but then again, perhaps not. When Marla catches wind that Isla is interested in someone from the past, she tells Isla to be sure to visit the local diner and speak to a man named John Ashworth, who is known for remembering things. Just when it seems like Marlene is trying to help, she drops another juicy piece of trivia. Apparently, everyone from the past eventually comes back to Lanesboro, and Marlene is confident that whoever Isla is looking for will return soon too. But is she looking for the right person? As it turns out, when you live in a small town, the walls are thin, and secrets are even thinner. So while Isla waits for her mysterious man to show up, she heads to the diner, and before long, she's sitting across from a friendly old man named John. After some pleasantries, Isla shows John the photograph and asks if he recognizes the man, and it turns out he does. His name is Tom. And while John doesn't know much about him, he does know that Tom used to frequent the Blue House by the river. It just so happens that this is also where Marlene is staying. And just as Marlene predicted, Tom shows up soon after. And I have to say, this moment is beautifully written and directed. As Tom approaches the table, his back is to us and we only hear his side of the conversation. But even though we can't see his face, we can tell by his tone that he is clearly shaken by the news that his former flame is in town. Eventually, He turns around and we get our first glimpse of him in more than 20 years. Seeing the shock on Isla's face, it becomes clear to us that Tom isn't quite the catch we thought he was. And I gotta admit, the actor doing his best to look 50 really sells the moment. And when Isla shows Tom a copy of the photo that was sent to her, all three of them realize that they all have pieces of the same puzzle. We then get a flashback to a few months earlier, and we see Tom living a simple life in Chicago, working as a carpenter and seemingly avoiding eye contact with everyone he passes on the street. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, a package arrives and Tom opens it to reveal a photo of himself along with a note telling him to find Isla. Tom immediately sets out on a journey to find his long-lost daughter, stopping only when he sees a familiar face. At this point, I'm definitely invested. I mean, I'm rooting for Isla, but I'm also curious about Tom and why he spent so long in hiding. Has he been protecting Isla all these years? And if so, why did he hide? There are so many questions, but thankfully, not much longer to wait for answers. After receiving the postcard from Tom, Isla realizes that she needs to follow him to Denver. But before she does, she takes a trip to the church where she and Tom shared their first kiss and left their second candle. There, she meets a kind old woman who tells her that she remembers Tom well. And according to her, Tom was always hopeful that Clara would return to him. Even after all these years, he never gave up hope. When the film cuts back to Tom, we see that he hasn't given up hope either. He's traveling to Denver to find Isla, hoping that he's not too late. After a montage of them each driving towards Denver, we see that they arrive on the same day. And I gotta say, the fact that they met on the same day is a bit of a plot device. But hey, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for a moment to get to the good stuff. Tom spots Isla at the bus station, but he doesn't approach her. Instead, he follows her from a distance, watching her interact with others and learn more about her personality. And this gives us a lot of insight into who Tom has become over the years. Clearly, he's a man who has suffered a great deal, but he is also a man who is willing to endure any amount of hardship for the sake of his daughter. We then get another flashback, this one showing us that Tom and Clara's romance was genuine, and that their relationship was strong enough to withstand the test of time. And if that wasn't obvious enough, we didn't get a modern-day scene showing us that Tom has been waiting for this moment for a very long time. But there's a problem. Tom is unsure if he's ready to reveal himself to Isla. Will she accept him? Or will she reject him for the mistakes he made in the past? We'll just have to find out next week. Thank you for watching. See you next time.